The day 300 Japanese pilots flew straight into hell. June 19, 1944, 300 Japanese planes take off for what should be their greatest victory. 2 hours later, only 30 make it back. This is the story of how American fighter pilots turned the Philippine Sea into a graveyard. Intro 25 seconds, the Battle of the Philippine Sea. You've probably never heard of it, but in just 2 days, Japan lost something they could never get back. Not ships, not territory, their ability to fight in the air, forever. What happened in those skies above the Pacific wasn't just a battle. It was a massacre so one-sided that American pilots started calling it the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. And once you hear what actually went down, you'll understand why. Problem/challenge setting the stage. Let's go back a few years. After Pearl Harbor, Japan owned the Pacific. Their pilots were the best in the world. Seriously. These guys had been fighting in China since 1937. They had thousands of hours of combat experience. They flew the legendary Zero fighter, a plane so good it could outturn anything America had. And they were winning, everywhere. But here's the thing about war. It's not just about who starts strong, it's about who can keep going. And by mid-1944, Japan had a massive problem they couldn't fix. Their experienced pilots were dead. Think about it. When you lose a pilot in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, he's gone. He doesn't bail out over friendly territory and fly again next week. He goes into the water and that's it. Since 1942, Japan had been bleeding experienced pilots at places like Midway, Guadalcanal, and the Solomons. The men who bombed Pearl Harbor, who terrorized the Pacific in 1941, most of them were already dead. America, on the other hand, had figured something out. They pulled their experienced pilots back home to train new guys. They built a massive pilot training program back in the States where students could learn without someone shooting at them. They had time, they had space, they had fuel to waste on practice. Japan didn't have any of that. By 1944, their new pilots were getting maybe 100 hours of flight time before going into combat. Some got less. American pilots were getting 400 to 600 hours, plus advanced tactical training. The Japanese were sending up teenagers who barely knew how to land on a carrier. Now, June 1944, the Americans are pushing into the Mariana Islands. Saipan, Tinian, Guam. These islands are only 1,500 miles from Tokyo, close enough to base the new B-29 bombers that could reach the Japanese home islands. Japan couldn't let that happen. They had to stop the Americans here, no matter what. So Japan sent everything they had left. Aircraft carriers, 5 battleships, including the Yamato, the biggest battleship ever built, 13 cruisers, 28 destroyers, and 473 aircraft. This was Operation Ago. The plan was simple: use land-based aircraft from Guam and other islands to soften up the American fleet. Then the carrier planes would finish them off. It was supposed to be Pearl Harbor in reverse. The American fleet was even bigger: 15 carriers, 7 battleships, 21 cruisers, 69 destroyers, and 956 aircraft. But size wasn't even the real advantage. The real advantage was something the Japanese didn't know about: radar. American ships had radar that could spot incoming aircraft 150 miles away. Japan was still relying on lookouts with binoculars. American fighters had radar that could guide them to targets at night or in clouds. American carriers had fighter direction officers who could coordinate dozens of planes at once like they were playing chess. The Americans could see everything. The Japanese were flying blind. Also, American planes had gotten way better. The F-6F Hellcat fighter was designed specifically to kill Zeros. It was faster, tougher, and had way more firepower. It couldn't outturn a Zero, but it didn't have to. American pilots learned to use their speed and power. Dive in, shoot, zoom away. Don't get into turning fights. The Hellcat had armor and self-sealing fuel tanks. The Zero didn't. One burst from a Hellcat's 6.50 caliber machine guns could shred a Zero into confetti. But the Japanese didn't know how outmatched they were. They thought they still had a chance. Admiral Ozawa, commanding the Japanese fleet, actually thought he had advantages. His planes could carry less fuel and more weapons because they could refuel at the island bases. He could launch strikes from farther away than American planes could reach. He thought he could hit the Americans before they could hit back. He was wrong. The morning of June 19th started with confusion. Japanese scout planes spotted the American fleet at 7:30. Ozawa started launching his strikes. But here's where everything started going wrong for Japan. First strike. 69 planes take off from the Japanese carriers. 45 fighters, 16 bombers, 8 torpedo planes. Their job is to hit the American carriers and clear the way for the bigger strikes coming behind them. The pilots are nervous. Most of them have never been in real combat before. They've trained for months, but training isn't the same as having someone actually trying to kill you. At 1,000 hours, American radar picks them up, 75 miles out. The Japanese planes are flying in a big, loose formation, not tight and tactical like they should be. Already, you can see the difference in training. The Americans launch everything. Hellcats roar off the carrier decks one after another. Within minutes, over 200 American fighters are in the air, climbing hard to intercept. The fighter direction officers on the carriers are calmly talking to the pilots, vectoring them to the threat. The Japanese don't have anything like this coordination. The two groups meet at 30,000 feet, and it's not even close. The American pilots are disciplined. They've trained for this exact scenario hundreds of times. They work in pairs. One guy shoots, his wingman protects him. They use their altitude advantage to dive down on the Japanese planes with insane speed. The Japanese pilots try to turn and fight, but the Hellcats just blow through them, shoot, and zoom back up. One American pilot, Lieutenant Alexander Vrasiu, spots a group of Japanese dive bombers. He positions himself above and behind them. Then he just methodically shoots them down, one after another. By the time he's done, he's killed 6 planes in 8 minutes. He runs out of ammunition and has to head back to his carrier. When he lands, he's so excited he can barely talk. 6 kills in one mission is insane, but Vrasiu isn't alone. All over the sky, Japanese planes are falling. They're burning. They're spinning into the ocean. Some blow apart completely. The few that get through the fighter screen run into something even worse. The American ships. American destroyers and cruisers form a protective ring around the carriers. They're packed with anti-aircraft guns. When the Japanese planes come within range, the sky turns into a wall of exploding steel. Every ship is firing. The bigger guns shoot proximity-fused shells that explode when they get near a plane. You don't even have to hit the plane directly. Just get close and the shrapnel does the rest. One Japanese pilot manages to drop his bomb. It misses. He tries to pull up and escape, but gets hit by flak. His plane catches fire and he crashes into the ocean. Another tries to torpedo a carrier. He gets shot down before he can release. One by one, they all go down. Out of 69 planes in the first strike, only 27 make it back to the carriers. 42 gone in less than an hour, but Ozawa doesn't know this yet. He's already launched the second strike. 109 planes this time. 53 bombers, 27 torpedo planes, 48 fighters. This is the big one. This is supposed to cripple the American fleet. The Americans are waiting. Mori Hellcats are already in the air. Fresh pilots, full ammunition. The radar picks up the second strike at 1100 hours. Here we go again. This time it's even worse for the Japanese. The American pilots are warmed up now. They know what to expect. The Japanese formation is even more disorganized than the first one. Some pilots are already getting lost. The fighters are supposed to protect the bombers, but they don't stick together. As soon as the Americans hit them, the whole formation falls apart. It turns into a massacre. American pilots are shooting down planes so fast they can barely keep count. One Japanese bomber explodes in midair when a Hellcat's bullets hit its bomb load. The explosion is so big it takes out 2 other planes flying nearby. Another bomber gets hit and starts trailing smoke. The pilot tries to keep flying, but his wing comes off and he spirals into the sea. The Japanese torpedo bombers are flying low and slow. Perfect targets. American fighters dive on them like hawks. Some of the Japanese crews bail out before they even get close to the American ships. They'd rather take their chances in the ocean than keep flying toward that wall of fire. A few planes make it through to the ships again. They drop their torpedoes and bombs. Everything misses. The American ships are turning hard, dodging. Their anti-aircraft fire is so thick it looks like a thunderstorm. One Japanese plane gets hit so many times it literally falls apart in the air. Wings, tail, engine, all separating and tumbling into the water. Second strike, 109 planes out. 97 get shot down, 12 make it back. Ozawa still doesn't fully understand what's happening. Communication is terrible. Pilots who do make it back are too traumatized to give clear reports. Some lie about what they saw because they can't admit how bad it was. Ozawa thinks his strikes are doing damage. He launches 2 more, third strike, 47 planes, they get absolutely shredded. Only 7 return, fourth strike, 82 planes. This group actually has some experienced pilots mixed in. They do slightly better, but only slightly. they manage to damage one American ship, the battleship South Dakota. But it's minor damage, nothing that stops her from fighting. Meanwhile, 73 of those 82 planes get shot down. Let's do the math. 4 strikes, 373 planes launched, only 130 return, 243 planes lost in one day, and they barely scratched the American fleet. But wait, it gets worse for Japan, way worse. Remember those land-based planes that were supposed to help, the ones on Guam and the other islands? American carriers had been bombing those islands all morning. The runways were cratered. The hangars were burning. Most of those land-based planes got destroyed on the ground before they could even take off. The few that did manage to get airborne ran into American fighters and got wiped out. And there's more. While all this is happening in the air, American submarines are hunting the Japanese fleet. The submarine USS Albacore finds the Japanese carrier Tahoe. It's Japan's newest, biggest carrier. Supposedly unsinkable, the Albacore fires 6 torpedoes, 1 hits. 1 torpedo doesn't sound like much, but this torpedo hits in just the right spot. It ruptures fuel tanks. Aviation fuel starts leaking. The crew tries to clean it up, but they make a mistake. They start using the ship's ventilation system to blow the fumes away. Instead, they spread the fumes throughout the entire ship. The Tahoe becomes a floating bomb. Hours later, some guy flips an electrical switch. 1 spark. That's all it takes. The aviation fuel fumes ignite. The explosion is enormous. It rips the Tahoe apart from the inside. The ship sinks in minutes, taking 1,650 men with her, including dozens of Japan's few remaining experienced pilots who were resting below decks. Another American submarine, USS Cavalier, finds the carrier Shikaku. The Shikaku is a veteran. She was at Pearl Harbor. She survived multiple battles. The Cavalier puts 3 torpedoes into her. The Shikaku's crew fights the damage for hours, but the fires spread to the fuel and ammunition stores. She explodes and sinks too. Another 1,272 men dead. So June 19th ends like this. Japan has lost 2 fleet carriers, 243 carrier aircraft, about 50 land-based aircraft, and over 3,000 men. The Americans lost 29 planes and damage to 1 battleship that'll be fixed in a week. This is already the most one-sided air battle in history, but Ozawa doesn't retreat. He's going to try again tomorrow. June 20th, Admiral Spruance, commanding the American fleet, has a decision to make. The Japanese fleet is running away. They're low on fuel, they've lost their best carriers, their air groups are destroyed. Spruance could let them go. His main job is to protect the invasion of Saipan, and he's done that. The Japanese are no longer a threat, but Spruance decides to go for the kill. He's going to chase down the Japanese fleet and finish it off. There's a problem though. The Japanese fleet is at the edge of the American planes' range. If American planes fly out there to attack, they might not have enough fuel to get back. They'll have to ditch in the ocean at night. Night water landings are incredibly dangerous. A lot of pilots are going to die. Spruance decides to do it anyway. At 1600 hours, he launches everything, 216 planes, Hellcats, dive bombers, torpedo bombers. Every pilot knows this is going to be rough. They're flying into the sunset, which means they'll be coming back in total darkness. Most of them have never landed on a carrier at night before. They fly for hours. The sun is setting behind them. They're burning fuel the whole way. Some pilots are already doing math in their heads, calculating whether they'll have enough to make it back. Finally, at 1840 hours. Spot the Japanese fleet. The Japanese have maybe 35 fighters left to defend themselves, 35 against 216. This isn't even a fair fight. American dive bombers scream down on the Japanese carriers. The carrier Hio takes multiple bomb hits. She catches fire immediately. The fires spread and reach her fuel stores. She explodes and sinks. Another carrier, Zuikaku, takes several hits but survives. 2 Japanese oilers get sunk. A cruiser gets hit. It's chaos. The American planes are only over the target for about 20 minutes. They drop everything they have and then turn around to head home. Now comes the really dangerous part. It's dark, completely dark. The pilots are exhausted and low on fuel. They're flying over open ocean with no landmarks. Some planes are already running on fumes. They're using every trick they know to save fuel, flying in formation to draft off each other, leaning out the fuel mixture as much as possible. Shutting down everything non-essential to save power. One by one, planes start running out of fuel. You can hear the engine cough and sputter over the radio. Then silence, splash. The pilot and crew are in the water somewhere in the darkness. No way to see them, no way to help them right now. Maury planes go down, splashes everywhere. The pilots still flying can hear their friends on the radio, calling out positions before they ditch. Everyone's trying to stay calm, but you can hear the fear in their voices. Finally, the survivors spot the American fleet, but there's a new problem. Landing on a carrier at night is one of the hardest things a pilot can do. You're coming in at exactly the right angle, exactly the right speed, trying to catch a wire on a moving deck you can barely see. Even experienced pilots crash doing this. These guys are exhausted, low on fuel, and most of them have never done it before. Admiral Mitchell, commanding the carrier task force, makes a gutsy call. He orders every ship to turn on their lights, all of them. This is incredibly dangerous. It makes them perfect targets if any Japanese planes or submarines are around. But he doesn't care. He's going to save as many pilots as he can. The carriers turn on their deck lights. The destroyers point searchlights straight up into the sky to act as beacons. Suddenly, the ocean is lit up like a city. The pilots can see the fleet from miles away. They head for it like moths to a flame. But turning on the lights doesn't make landing easier. Planes are coming in from every direction. There's no organization anymore. It's every man for himself. Some pilots are so exhausted and disoriented they try to land on the wrong carrier. Some come in too high or too fast and crash into the barriers. Some miss the wires entirely and go off the bow into the water. One pilot comes in, catches a wire, but his plane is so shot up it breaks apart on the deck. The crew is okay, but the plane is blocking the landing area. Other planes are circling overhead, running out of fuel, waiting for the deck to clear. The carrier crews are working as fast as they can, pushing wrecked planes overboard to make room for the next guy. Some pilots realize they're not going to make it to a carrier. They spot destroyers and decide to ditch next to them instead. At least the destroyer can pick them up. They put their plane down in the water as gently as they can and get out before it sinks. The destroyer crews throw them life rafts and pull them aboard. Other pilots aren't so lucky. They ditch too far away from any ship. They're in the water in the darkness, floating in their life vests, hoping someone saw where they went down. The fleet can't stop to look for them now. They'll have to send rescue planes and ships at first light and hope the guys survive the night. When it's all over, the Americans have lost 80 planes from the strike. But here's the crazy thing. Only 20 were shot down by the Japanese. The other 60 ran out of fuel or crashed trying to land. Still, out of all those pilots and crew who went in the water, the rescue operations over the next few days saved most of them. The Japanese would have left them to die. The Americans spend days searching and pull 160 men out of the ocean. Let's add it up. June 19th and 20th, 1944, the Battle of the Philippine Sea. Japan sent out roughly 750 aircraft between carrier planes and land-based planes. About 600 of them got destroyed. 3 carriers sunk, thousands of men dead. And in return, they damaged 1 American battleship. The Americans lost about 130 planes total, and most of those weren't even from combat. They rescued most of the pilots. No ships sunk. No carriers damaged. This is why American pilots called it the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. It was like shooting turkeys. The Japanese planes were that easy to kill. After this battle, Japan's naval air power basically stopped existing. They had carriers, but no trained pilots to fly off them. They had planes, but no one who could use them effectively. This is why, later in 1944, Japan started using kamikaze attacks. When your pilots are so badly trained they can't hit anything, you might as well just have them crash into ships on purpose. The battle also shows you what happens when one side has way better training, way better technology, and way better tactics. Japan was still fighting like it was 1941. America had evolved. Better planes, better pilots, better coordination, better everything. Japan couldn't adapt fast enough. They couldn't replace their losses fast enough. They couldn't train pilots fast enough. After the Philippine Sea, Japan knew they'd lost control of the air. They'd never get it back. The path to the Japanese home islands was now wide open. The B-29s would start bombing Japan from the Marianas a few months later. The end was coming, and everyone knew it. And it all happened because 300 Japanese pilots flew into a meat grinder and only a handful made it out. Hit subscribe if you want more stories like this.